Have you ever wondered why, no matter how hard you try, your emotions still run the show? Why distractions, fear, and insecurity derail your focus even when you know better? What if I told you that real power begins the moment you master yourself, not the world around you? This isn't about motivation hacks or morning routines. It's about something much deeper, discipline, but not just the grind-it-out kind. We're talking about a discipline that begins in your mind, forged by philosophy, and built to last through the storms of life. In this video, we'll break down the ancient Stoic framework of self-mastery, 3 disciplines that have helped warriors, scholars, and leaders conquer not others, but themselves. If you're ready to take control of your life from the inside out, subscribe to the channel now, and let's begin the transformation. 1. The foundation of all growth, internal discipline. Every great achievement begins with a silent personal decision to master the self. Stoicism teaches that discipline is not just about willpower, but about governing your thoughts, emotions, and actions through reason. This kind of discipline isn't loud. It doesn't show up as motivational speeches or grand gestures. Instead, it emerges in those unseen moments. When you resist the urge to lash out in anger, when you delay gratification in favor of long-term growth, when you choose not to let fear dictate your decisions. Internal discipline is quiet, deliberate, and deeply personal. It's the art of managing the mind before the world manages you. It's not flashy, it won't impress anyone, but it will change your life. Most people seek change by altering the external, jobs, relationships, environments. But what Stoicism reveals is that all transformation must begin from within. You can't move forward if your inner world is in disarray. It doesn't matter how ambitious your goals are if you're still a prisoner to your impulses. Internal discipline becomes the bedrock upon which everything else rests: focus, purpose, and peace. When you begin to rule over your impulses, your reactions, your judgments, that's when you become powerful. Not because the world bends to your will, but because your will is no longer a slave to the world. True power is subtle. It's not about dominance or manipulation. It's about sovereignty over your own mind. When someone insults you and you remain composed, you are free. When adversity strikes and you meet it without panic, you are strong. The disciplined person is no longer at the mercy of moods or circumstances. They become grounded, unshaken, able to choose their response instead of being controlled by reaction. This discipline is the origin point of resilience, focus, and clarity. Without it, even the most intelligent mind gets trapped in cycles of doubt and distraction. A sharp intellect is useless without control. Many people know what they should do, but lack the discipline to do it. They know what harms them, but still indulge in it. They have dreams, but allow procrastination or fear to sabotage them. Without inner discipline, knowledge sits idle, potential rots, and life becomes a constant loop of false starts. But with it, you can endure hardship, stay steady in chaos, and build something enduring. This is the core of Stoicism, not an escape from life, but a better way to meet it. 2. The discipline of desire. Want less, accept more. How often do we suffer not because of what happens, but because we wish it didn't? The Stoics understood this deeply. The discipline of desire asks one simple question: are your desires aligned with reality? Most suffering, the Stoics taught, comes from resistance. We want things to be other than they are. We want people to change, the world to conform, events to unfold according to our preferences. But this is not how life works. The discipline of desire teaches that freedom lies not in getting what you want, but in wanting what you have. When you release the expectation that life owes you anything, you begin to experience a radical kind of peace. Epictetus taught us, to desire only what's in our control. That means letting go of outcomes, opinions, even praise. It means learning to love fate, amor fati, and embracing every twist of life as necessary and meaningful. To accept fate is not passivity, it's maturity. Amor fati doesn't mean you enjoy every hardship. It means you see every hardship as useful, even transformative. The loss, the delay, the rejection, they are part of your training. When you desire only what is within your control, your attitude, your choices, your mindset, you free yourself from the tyranny of external circumstance. You shift from victim to participant. When you stop fighting reality, your suffering softens. You stop demanding the world meet your expectations. Instead, you meet it with courage. Imagine the energy wasted on resisting what already is, complaining about the weather, clinging to past regrets, agonizing over what others think. All of this stems from misguided desire. The Stoic instead asks, "What now?" rather than "Why me?" They redirect that energy into what can actually be changed. This shift turns daily life from a battlefield of frustration into a journey of self-possession. This is where calm begins, not by changing the world, but by changing your relationship with it. Inner peace is not the absence of chaos, but the ability to remain centered within it. The discipline of desire doesn't strip you of ambition, it purifies it. You no longer chase for validation, but for virtue. You no longer crave outcomes, but growth. You begin to see that everything in your path, even the painful things, serve a purpose in shaping your character. And from that place of acceptance, your power grows, not from control, but from release. 3. The discipline of action. Live with virtue, not ego. Virtue is the only true good. That's what the Stoics believed. And the discipline of action is where we live that belief, by choosing to act rightly, regardless of reward or recognition. Modern life often rewards performance over principle. It teaches us to do what looks good, not what is good. But Stoicism flips this. It asks you to act with moral clarity even when it's inconvenient, unpopular, or unnoticed. To do the right thing not for applause, but because your conscience demands it. This is what separates mere ambition from character. Whether you're willing to act rightly, even when it costs you something. In a world obsessed with outcomes and optics, Stoicism reminds us, do what's right because it's right. Nothing more, nothing less. When your actions are driven by ego, they are fragile, dependent on praise, vulnerable to criticism. But when your actions are rooted in virtue, they are unshakable. You don't need anyone to agree with you. You don't need the world to reward you. You become free from external validation because your compass is internal. Your sense of right is not swayed by the crowd. It is carved into your soul. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Just that you do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter." This means showing up with integrity in your work, your relationships, and your decisions without attachment to how others receive it. This quote is not passive resignation, it's radical commitment. It means being honest even when a lie would protect your reputation. It means being kind even when others are cruel. It means following through on your duties even when no one thanks you. The discipline of action is a daily test. Will you live according to your values or according to your convenience? This kind of discipline is rare. It requires humility. It demands that you show up every day with quiet strength, even when no one's watching. Stoic action is quiet, not flashy. It's the nurse who shows up early, the father who keeps his promises, the student who studies when it's easier to scroll. These aren't dramatic acts, but they're heroic, because they're consistent, because they're grounded in values. This discipline doesn't ask you to be perfect, it asks you to be intentional. Every action is a chance to embody who you truly are, and over time, these moments of virtue compound into a life of meaning, honor, and inner peace. 4. The discipline of assent. Control your judgments. You are not disturbed by events, but by the stories you tell yourself about them. The discipline of assent is about filtering your thoughts, watching how you interpret reality, and choosing only what is true. This insight, rooted in the wisdom of Epictetus, lies at the very core of Stoic resilience. Events in life, job losses, breakups, betrayals, setbacks, are often beyond your control. But the mental commentary you attach to those events is not. When someone insults you, the insult itself has no power unless you grant it assent, unless you agree with the implication behind their words. If you choose to see it as a meaningless utterance from a troubled person, it loses its sting. But if you inwardly nod to it, thinking, they must be right about me, then you have handed over your peace voluntarily. The discipline of assent, therefore, is not passive. It requires alertness, discernment, and the strength to challenge your mental habits before they hijack your perception. Like a gatekeeper standing before the doors of your mind, you decide which impressions are allowed to shape your view of the world. This power of interpretation is the Stoic's shield, and learning how to wield it changes everything. Most suffering stems from false narratives. I'm not good enough. I'll never succeed. They don't respect me. These judgments feel automatic, but they're not inevitable. These inner monologues often masquerade as truth because they've become so familiar. They echo past wounds, societal expectations, and the silent pressures of comparison. But just because a thought is familiar doesn't make it true. And just because it arrives without invitation doesn't mean it deserves a seat at your table. Stoicism teaches you to catch these mental reflexes before they settle. When you say, "I'll never succeed," is that a statement of fact or just fear wearing the mask of logic? When you think, "They don't respect me," have you examined the evidence, or are you projecting your own insecurity? The discipline of assent demands that you interrogate these reflexive judgments to bring them into the light of reason where they can be seen for what they are, impressions, not facts. If they do not serve your clarity, purpose, or peace, why should they stay? Most suffering is not caused by reality, but by our resistance to it, by our attachment to false interpretations. The Stoic seeks to remove that distortion. The Stoic trains the mind to stop, to question, to choose. Is this thought useful? Is it true? Does it help me live better? This is the practice of assent in action. It's not repression, nor is it delusion. It is mental discipline, the art of inner governance. The Stoic becomes a philosopher not by studying theory, but by applying rational filters to everyday thoughts. Suppose a friend doesn't reply to your message. The untrained mind might spiral. They must be angry with me. I must have done something wrong. The trained mind, however, halts. It asks, is there evidence for this? Could there be another explanation? Even if they are upset, is their reaction within my control? This shift from reaction to reflection reclaims your agency. The goal is not to emotionally numb yourself, but to respond with clarity rather than chaos. You train your mind the way an athlete trains their body, not to remove difficulty, but to face it with precision and endurance. When you learn to assent only to reason, you gain the ability to remain calm under pressure, clear in chaos, and rational in the face of fear. This is the endgame of the discipline of assent, equanimity. In a world full of uncertainty and noise, the Stoic cultivates an inner fortress. He or she does not repress emotion, but channels it wisely. Fear no longer dictates decisions. Anger no longer overrides compassion. Envy loses its grip because judgment has matured. This kind of mental strength creates a quiet power, a dignity that cannot be stolen by circumstance. You become someone who doesn't panic at misfortune or overreact to insult. Instead, you pause, you breathe, you assess, and you act in alignment. With truth, not impulse. That's not cold detachment, that's wisdom in motion. The world may swirl around you, but your mind, anchored by reason, remains unshaken. 5. Stoicism in scholarship. Emotional mastery for thinkers. Discipline isn't just for warriors, it's for thinkers too. Scholars, writers, and creators face mental battles daily. Criticism, self-doubt, uncertainty. Stoicism offers tools to face them with grace. Too often, intellectual pursuits are romanticized as purely rational endeavors. Yet anyone immersed in creative or academic work knows the inner turbulence that comes with it. A writer stares at the blank page, not just fearing writer's block, but fearing inadequacy. A researcher publishes years of work only to be met with critique or silence. An artist unveils their soul in color only to feel exposed. These aren't trivial struggles, they are emotional crucibles. Stoicism doesn't just serve soldiers and statesmen, it serves thinkers who wrestle with invisible wars. The same discipline that steadies a warrior's hand steadies a scholar's heart. When your ego trembles under the weight of expectation or failure, Stoic principles can restore your balance. They remind you that your worth is not tied to applause, that your labor is not in vain if it aligns with virtue. The mental resilience needed for deep, consistent thought is built not on motivation, but on discipline, and Stoicism provides its blueprint. Discipline of desire teaches you to accept critique without crumbling. Feedback is fuel, not a verdict on your worth. A Stoic scholar learns that desire must be managed, not indulged. And one of the most dangerous desires in intellectual work is the craving for praise. When you write for applause, when you research for recognition, your soul becomes tethered to something you cannot control. Criticism then becomes unbearable because it threatens your identity. But if your aim is truth, then critique becomes your ally. Feedback, no matter how harsh, becomes a refinement tool, not an existential threat. The Stoic doesn't desire approval, he desires growth. And if growth comes through correction, so be it. This discipline of desire reorients your ambition from fame to contribution, from vanity to clarity. You begin to see your work not as a reflection of your ego, but as a gift you offer, shaped and sharpened by others. It's a humbling but liberating shift. You no longer rise and fall with every review or rejection. Discipline of action ensures your work serves a higher goal. Research, writing, ideas, they should contribute to something greater than your ego. Action without purpose becomes performance. A Stoic scholar grounds their work in ethics, not accolades. Why do you write? Why do you teach? Why do you study? If the answer is self-glorification, you'll find the path hollow. But if it's service, truth-seeking, justice, the betterment of others, then you will endure the labor gladly. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations not to impress but to remind himself how to live. That's the Stoic way. Your work is a form of moral expression, a contribution to the common good. Whether you're a scientist, a philosopher, a journalist, or a playwright, your output should reflect your values. This is what transforms mere productivity into purpose. And when you anchor your work to something larger than yourself, you can endure setbacks with serenity, because the mission, not your mood, becomes the measure of success. Discipline of assent helps silence the inner critic and embrace rational evaluation. You learn to judge your work honestly, neither inflated by pride nor diminished by fear. The inner critic is both a saboteur and a signal. Stoicism helps you discern which it is. The untrained mind either surrenders to the voice of self-loathing or drowns it in arrogance. But the Stoic mind listens carefully. It asks, is this critique grounded in truth, or anxiety? Should I revise, or is this just doubt talking? The discipline of assent teaches you not to assent to every passing opinion, especially the ones you whisper to yourself. You learn to see your own work clearly through the lens of reason. You can say, "This paragraph is weak," without saying, "I'm a terrible writer." You can say, "This idea needs work," without believing, "I'm a failure." This clarity is a superpower in intellectual life. It helps you revise with honesty, publish without panic, and think with integrity. When these three disciplines converge, you not only become a stronger thinker, you become a more stable, ethical human being. Intellectual excellence is not separate from moral character, it depends on it. A Stoic scholar is not just sharp, they are centered. They do not use brilliance to belittle others or to inflate themselves. They use it to illuminate truth, to educate, to elevate. The disciplines of desire, action, and assent create a kind of wholeness, where your mind serves your values, your work reflects your principles, and your inner world supports your outer mission. In an age of distraction, ego-driven performance, and intellectual fragility, Stoicism offers a way forward. It calls thinkers back to discipline, not as punishment, but as freedom. Because the more you master yourself, the more clearly you can see, the more truthfully you can write, and the more powerfully you can contribute. In a world full of noise and pressure, the Stoics remind us that the greatest revolution is internal. Discipline isn't punishment, it's freedom. It's not about control over others, but over yourself. Desire what's yours to desire. Act with virtue. Judge with reason. This is the blueprint for resilience, focus, and peace. If you found this message valuable, subscribe and stay with us. We're building a community of thinkers, seekers, and doers, people committed to mastering the self. Because once you win the battle within, nothing outside can shake you.